has any information, they need to contact the Gardaí and Swords, and it would really help the family at this awful time.
EU leaders are meeting in Brussels to discuss the migration crisis. Germany and Italy are among 16 countries expected at the informal meeting. It comes after growing disagreement between countries on how to deal with the issue. And a state ceremony has been held at Dublin Castle to celebrate 60 years of unbroken peacekeeping. It's the longest unbroken service of any peacekeeping nation in the world. The Taoiseach and the President attended the service, which celebrates our efforts overseas while also remembering those who never came home. That's it for now. We'll have more in an hour.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to Des Kelly Interiors. Our friendly staff will help you choose the perfect carpet at the new look Des Kelly Interiors.
Fine and mostly sunny today with some light and variable breezes. Top temperatures of 19 to 26 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Sunday Papers on Off the Ball.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie. Championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products.
Yeah, welcome along to the paper review. We have in studio Kieran Cunningham, Chief Sports Writer with the Irish Daily Star. We have former Meath footballer Anthony Moyles, now involved with the Club Players Association as well. And your headlines as we watch England 5, Panama 0 with the second half about to start and the Ulster final about to start. The front pages were streaming on Facebook as well, so I'll hold these up to camera. All very much about the rugby yesterday. Front page of the Sunday Independent. Picture there of Johnny Sexton and Geordie Murphy and Bundy Aki at full time. This was probably just after Sexton turned away from the referee and David Pocock at the end. Schmidt's heroic history makers. Ireland dig deep in Sydney to close out series triumph, and that's pretty much all of their front page there. The back page of the Mail then. On top, down under is the headline. Again, it's that picture of Aki and Geordie Murphy and Johnny Sexton at full time. Ireland celebrate first series win in Australia in 39 years. The Sunday Times. Actually, I'm only noticing this as we go through them. The exact same picture. It's one of those things, isn't it? It's Johnny Sexton and Bundy Aki and Geordie Murphy. Jump for joy is the headline. Brave Ireland hold on for the first 3-test series win.
What do you think AA on his wristband means?
Say again?
Aki's wristband.
He is AA.
Little,
it's somebody Aki, I would guess.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, possibly is. Yeah, probably.
They often write the names of loved ones.
Yeah, or a tip of what, or do so many turnovers or whatever their target.
Well, there, his daughter actually is pictured inside with him, and his daughter's name is Adriana.
Oh, that could well be
Look
it.
at that.
There we go.
Sherlock Holmes this. So 16-20, obviously the final result, if you didn't catch it there on the front page of the Sunday Times. Sunday Mirror then go with Rebel Rout on the back of last night's win. Even Kerry boss can't keep up with figures. And beneath that, Sid the Sexiest.
Yeah. Do you not remember Viz? You never read Viz magazine?
No.
Sid the Sexist was one of the characters.
Okay.
A Geordie chap.
Okay, well this is Sid the Sexiest, I presume.
There's a pun on that, I presume.
A pun on Sydney and Johnny Sexton, I guess. Anyway, on safer ground, historic win in Australia, so special to Irish heroes on the back page of the Sunday Mirror. The Sunday People, obviously a bit more of an English focus, as you can imagine. Southgate, we won't fizzle out in heat wave. This was obviously timely this morning, and his words have proved pretty correct. 33 degrees at the moment, but they're 5-0 up now and doing just fine. Then Sunday World, Wizard of Oz. This is Sexton-inspired series win. Nice picture of Ollie Campbell as well thrown in. A heck of a lot of it tonight was character, is the quote inside. That's from Joe Schmidt. He said that afterwards. The Observer then front page, taking more of a world view, and it's Tony Kroos. Kroos missile, great headline there. Germany's World Cup saved by stunner deep into injury time, and it's Kroos running away celebrating Germany 2-1 winners thanks to that free kick very late on. And then last two very quickly, the joy of sex, says the Star. And a picture of Johnny Sexton. Jubilant Joe hails heroes of record-breaking season. And, well, on the Sun then finally, it's front and back page news. So Roy Keane talking about Saipan. I mean, it's half the front page, and it's from an ITV podcast.
I actually listened to it this morning, and there's not much in it. Like,
No.
There was one thing he's about to say something about impact on one of his kids, I think, and then he thought better of it, and that was the only thing that struck out to me, I have to say.
It's just noteworthy the impact it still has. That this is like the top banner of the Sun on Sunday. I let Mick off lightly. He just had to say sorry. I'd do it all over again. I also listen to the podcast, and it's far from explosive stuff. Sun Sport, Crudini, that's obviously Tony Kroos again. Last gasp, Tony in Escape Act is their back page. So the rugby features large, as you can imagine. In some respects, this team are a victim of their own success. I mean, it was quickly digested and done with, I feel, in my world anyway. It was like, well, that's just what this team do.
That's to be honest, that's what jumped out at me reading the coverage. And it reminds me of Dublin in a way that people are struggling to know what to say anymore or to write about them anymore, because there's been so many superlatives. They've achieved so much over the last year. Like Johnny Sexton's been praised so much. So what more is there to say with Johnny Sexton or Peter O'Mahony or Joe Schmidt? So it's quite there's nothing really that jumps out in the coverage. Like people are saying this is amazing, and it is. But like even I think that headline in Shane Horgan's piece, Schmidt can toast a triumph of character, sums it up, because it really was about character. When you look, when to win the test down there, series down there would be amazing anyway. But to do it after losing the first test, I think is particularly praiseworthy, because it was such a long, hard season. In a way, it would have been easy for them to switch off after and say, "Okay, it's not going to happen." And even yesterday in the second half, when they looked like they were going to be toast, they kept at it and got it out. But it's funny, Shane Horgan and Neil Francis both bring up the same thing, that the way Ireland play tournament rugby will really test them, the 7 weeks that it's Ireland is such a tough physical attritional game. And the one guy you're looking at, Kieran Marmion only got a couple of minutes. Conor Murray is so important.
Brian O'Driscoll said in studio here a few weeks ago he's our most important player.
Yeah.
Well, it's borne out by the fact I thought he looked out on his feet with 15-20 to go yesterday. Like he'd taken a few big hits. And I was actually saying, who's the scrum half? I had to kind of just check it, and then I was expecting Marion to come on, and for him not to see anything, especially in that kind of 10-minute period, 15 to go, when they were under serious pressure. But I think, like Horgan's point, where he's talking about obviously the character and the way they play, and he spoke about the fact that, like he said, like everything that Smith's Ireland do, this will have been deposited in the memory bank, ready to be withdrawn at a suitable moment in the future. He was talking about the way that something that Sexton does, where he kicks in behind teams now. Like that is what Schmidt is all about. And it is strange in the coverage. I'm yet to see, and I didn't see it today. Like I thought they were pretty basic. It was like, even an awful lot of it, they relied an awful lot on, bash him at the front. There's very, very little kind of skill in the back line and stuff, really inventive stuff.
Horgan says, I was surprised that Ireland reverted to the close quarter approach of using one-out runners from phase ball. He says, though, there were, however, two upsides to this. The first was they executed much better than they did in Brisbane when the last time they did it, so they out-muscled their opponents, and ruck ball was cleaner as a result. He says the second was that Australia decided to do the same thing. This was not smart rugby because their forwards couldn't get anything going and were prone to mistakes in their offloading. So he was a bit surprised at that as well. That's
it's just like I watched the New Zealand game before, and they're just playing a different game.
It's not a good idea to watch New Zealand
no, it's not.
Before the Ireland games.
But it is, like, ultimately, if Ireland go to where Schmidt will want them to go, like, they want to obviously try to win the World Cup. There is going to be a sense of they're going to obviously have to beat, more than likely, New Zealand. So how can he get his attritional game to the next level? But like any coach would tell you, the one thing he has, and he has it nailed and he has it in abundance with that team, is character. So he can probably take the next year now to try to develop, because if you remember him with Leinster, they were very inventive with Leinster. Like some of those Heineken Cups they won, they did unbelievable moves, but you don't really see that now.
But these days, there's so much analysis goes on that other teams are studying Ireland so closely. I'm sure he, from what I gather with Schmidt, like I know he's very friendly with Jim Gavin, and they're very similar approach, that they're so methodical in planning. And I would say he's planned the run up to the World Cup exactly what he wants to do. And I presume he's keeping something back. Like you don't want to have your game plan out there a year in advance.
We heard that at the last World Cup.
I know, but surely he's learned the lesson of that.
Hope so. I was talking to someone very close to the camp, and won't say any more than that, who said the way to watch Ireland is so off set piece, off a scrum, off a line out, watch the first 4 to 5 phases. That's when they've got their thing. That's when the move is on and they all know what they're doing. Watch that really closely. Something's coming. And if they don't get that breakthrough after 4 or 5 phases, then watch the thing just go downhill pretty rapidly into, right, round the corner, or kick it away.
Okay.
When you watch Ireland through that lens, you suddenly see the game in a different way.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So obviously opposition
Yes.
has to know that too.
Opposition therefore say, off set piece, these first 4 or 5 phases, dig in, fight the ruck, slow them down.
Which Australia did.
Did it brilliantly. Slow them down, let's go, and then things will get a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
It's interesting
amazing,
he's bringing up South Africa already. Did you see that, Schmidt? He brought up their wings, how electric they were and exciting.
Right.
Because it does look like more than likely that would be the quarter-final, and that has been the hurdle Ireland keep falling at.
Rassie Erasmus is going to have South Africa in a great place in a year.
There's actually a very good article in the Sunday Times on Erasmus, and it talks about the inclusiveness that he's bringing in.
Yeah.
They have something like, I think it was 400 professional rugby players playing overseas.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
I know, they've all left the country. Who wrote that piece? It was a good piece.
Sorry, I think it must be by, it was with Stephen Jones, yeah.
Jones, yeah.
But the amazing thing is that obviously they were talking about the non-white players and the integration. And what they said was that obviously superb athletes, but then when they were put into these programs to bring them, and then they were thrown in at the deep end, he said they couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
They folded because they weren't used to being at this kind of level. But he said what they need to do now as a nation, and obviously what he's trying to do and what they seem to have been doing, is that they're bringing these guys along, and any weaknesses that they have, whether it's mental weakness or whatever it is, just getting used to being in these camps, that they're going to basically right all of those wrongs, which is very, very interesting to hear, you know. And I think it's Jones says it.
They were given no high performance background, so suddenly they'd arrive on the scene and be given so much more detail than they were ever used to.
And overload.
Of course, you're going to sink in that environment. So he was saying actually they're giving them a much better preparation.
Yeah. Jones actually says if you can really solve the wounds and end years of torture, then South Africa becomes both representative and powerhouse. It is simply a wonderful prospect.
Yeah, and they're also a tournament team, which should be, you know, that's put Ireland guard. Like, they lose to Japan the last time, and they're still going to charge.
Well, they have a rule whereby of these 400 abroad, the general rule is you don't play for the country, except in a World Cup year.
Oh.
Yeah.
So quite often they can sting the joint out for 3 years, and then in a World Cup year they can summon the troops back. And but Rassie Erasmus, Jones was saying that piece as well, is going around to owners and saying, well, look, will you give me this guy for these 3 or 4 weeks? He's not going to the player directly and saying, I want you to come.
Yes.
And then you've got an argument with your owner or your coach.
Your coach, yeah.
So I think Erasmus is
smart,
very intelligent fella.
Yeah.
Neil Francis says, I feel a huge sense of pride in Ireland's rugby team. When it was easier to lose this game, Ireland displayed remarkable reserves of courage all the way to the finish line. The aggregate score was 55 points each in the 3 tests, but Ireland are winners because of their character. Is character like, come on, character.
Well, the one thing
I'm going to go with Frano, by the way, because Shane Horgan's piece about character. Joe Schmidt talked about character.
But you can only really talk because you can't talk about their attacking prowess, right? Like, I mean, if you look at most of the kind of controversial moments, and this is something about Ireland, an awful lot always ends up hinging around the referee and the TMO, because there's a lot of stuff, like even yesterday remember Murray tried to hit the ball, was it Murray off the base of the post? Yeah. Like, I mean, there was no sense that they were going to throw that ball out. It was just like, go again. But to go back to the character thing, like if you're managing a team, and you have a team that can, you know, cut teams open and play beautiful rugby or beautiful Gaelic or beautiful soccer or whatever it is, but they lack character, you are really going to find it difficult to put that backbone in. Yeah. It's impossible.
I just feel it's so close to... You must have sat there on a Monday and been told that the team that had beaten Meath, well, they just wanted it more than them. And you must have bristled at that tone of analysis. Like, do the Australians not want this and do they not have as much character? Like, Frano later on talks about... the key to this game was Australia were not able to finish off their opportunities despite having so many talented passers, runners. They were inaccurate in their penultimate pass. Skills break down under pressure. That feels like a more, and he also talks about Will Genia was a huge loss. That feels like a more satisfactory explanation to me than character.
But there are levels of character. Like, I think, like, it's like nobody that goes into a boxing ring is a coward, and I don't think a coward can take the field in a rugby game either. So everybody that does so has a lot of character, but there are levels. Like, people and teams have different levels. I think that. Would you not agree with that? No?
I suppose maybe I'm just becoming overly analytical. I want
we're trying
emotional lists of things.
Well, I think as we said, the character, you're right in the saying that the different levels of character, because I think if you look at Ireland's penalty count, so the game that they play, they force you to eventually, because they hold on to the ball so much, they force you to eventually try to encroach too much or give something away, and ultimately the penalty count nailed Australia. I don't think Australia showed massive character, I thought, as well. They were, they were quite inventive. Like, I mean, the possession stakes at one stage yesterday was like 90-10.
They owned the second half.
It was ridiculous. Yeah. But so you have to say that the character then is also what Schmidt brings to when they're in Carton House and everything else, that they're so professional and that they're so patient and also that they're so disciplined. They are unbelievably disciplined.
You see, I feel that that's what it was. Okay, look, the character thing, I don't know how to quantify it, and it's just a thing we talk about. And Joe Schmidt, I think, set the train in motion by talking about character in his post-match interview and subconsciously.
But it's like the hunger thing. Like, I know when people bring up the hunger, the GA,
exactly.
Often it drives me mad, but it is a factor in some games and some teams. I do look at a team and say they are so hungry. Like Fermanagh today, for example, I would say would be absolutely ravenous.
Yeah, but just to finish my point, I think what happened at the end is less to do with character, because I don't feel there could be a huge difference between the two sides' character and desire and all that stuff. I think it's what Anthony talks about. It's the habitual, this is how we do things over and over and over and over again, kicking in the discipline.
Yeah.
Like, that's not character, that's just habits that Joe Schmidt insists the team have. For me,
well, it's chicken and egg a bit.
It is.
You have to have it. You have to, because at the end of the day, when those moments come, I'm not giving out about certain, but Stockdale had a couple of opportunities yesterday, which he really, I'd say Schmidt was on the sideline absolutely jumping up and down, because there was one to knock on, which was a beautiful pass into his bread basket, and he knocked it on, and then there was the other one where he went out of touch when he should have, Ireland needed to hold on to the ball for a while.
Yeah.
And like, he will be, I'd say, ripped apart for that, in a video session. And his character will be tested by that. It'll be like, can you bounce back from this? Or are you going to sulk and go off? Yeah. And that's how he does it.
And it's going to be such tiny margins in that World Cup quarter-final. It's likely to be a one-score game. Yeah. So, like, one error like that, that's your World Cup.
Peter O'Reilly noticed a difference over there. He said, whereas previously in Australia, you got used to the blather about plucky tourists and the fascination with Brian O'Driscoll to the point of ignoring every other Irish player. This time, Ireland were viewed as equals, if not superior to the Wallabies. And then he has a quote from John Eales, who wrote before the game, if these teams played each other 10 times in these circumstances, Ireland would win 6, the Wallabies 4. So Peter O'Reilly even noticed a subtle shift this time around in how the Irish team were being talked about. It was not Brian O'Driscoll and the rest. It was, God, these guys are really, really good. Yeah. So that's the rugby. Yeah. 1979 is the last time they won a series, and it's the first ever 3-test series as well. So pretty special stuff. Yeah. The World Cup is on, so let's go World Cup then, and then we'll get to the GAA. So Stephen Hunt is being proved more correct by the second at the moment. Yeah.
Because I read. I was down in Cork last night for Cork Kerry, and I stayed down and read it read the papers on the way back, and I saw Stephen's piece, and I thought, Stephen, you're losing the run of yourself. You're trying to get a gig with the BBC. But he's, as by all accounts, like I was, from what you guys are saying, they've been really impressive against Panama. Excellent. I know Panama are no world beaters, but you still have to do your stuff.
It's the kind of game they would have laboured to a 1-0 win.
Yeah.
After seeing all the big guns, is the headline, I still think England will go all the way, says Stephen Hunt.
Oh, that's great for me.
You tip. Why? You have you got them in a pool or something?
I got them in a pool, but I also backed them.
Oh, very good.
And I was on here. I was doing the AM show with Ger and Owen was kind of like, there was a lot of snickering going on, And I was saying, actually, hold on a sec. I said, these guys have all the opportunities, because there's no prima donnas. They're a team who, even the Kane captaincy thing, there's kind of he fits the bill of just a very workman-like, professional, yes, he has all the ability, but we're not going to see him, in the dentist chair, remember Gascoigne back in the famous one.
And even he's not a David Beckham or John Terry, he's really he's kind of boring, which is what you want.
It struck me, he's one of the first England captains in quite some time who doesn't see it as a major addition to his brand.
Absolutely.
That he can make money off.
Point,
it's not like this thing. David Beckham coveted it. The same way he's sending those murky emails about wanting to be a knight.
And Terry did as well. Terry's the kind of guy, if you were having a five-a-side kickabout on the beach in the summer and John Terry was there, I would say he would have a captain's armband and his shorts that he would put on.
I remember John Terry was
breaking lads up.
I remember he was caught out, wanting to show people around the box at Wembley that he got and make money off it. Kane seems to have his head screwed on. He's the most likeable England captain.
And it's interesting, I know it's often mentioned of those Galway connection, but I was reading up on them. I didn't realise the extent of them. Like his cousins are champion fiddlers in Letterfrack. I think Liz and Yvonne Kane, like they'd be very well known traditional music circles. Like some people play violin.
Slip through our net.
Yeah, but
as we speak, he's just scored another goal. England are 6-0 up. Harry Kane with a hat trick. He's on. What's he on? 5 goals now, 2 games in.
Wow, that's interesting. But the factor, and there's a few pieces on it across the papers, is
on England.
No. But the relationship with the press,
right?
Like how this impacts on them, because it does become a factor at tournaments.
Well, there's a billion different pieces on England today, as you can imagine, which I'm not including because they'll all date so quickly for podcast listeners. Tommy Conlon, cordial press relations may soon turn to friendly fire for Southgate. But the most interesting thing I thought was just in the initial paragraphs, 21 million people watched their opening World Cup game against Tunisia. The audience peaked at 18.3, had an average of 13.7. And he says the water cooler moment of the year was supposed to be the Prince Harry, Meghan Markle wedding last month, but the average audience for that was only 11.5 million.
Well, it's an enormous, like you said that Harry Kane is a likable type of cat. Like you'd wonder if things went a little bit sour for him, because they will be tested, obviously, right? Not today,
and but they will lose. They will lose eventually.
So will Kane then actually the stalwart English fan turn on Kane and say, sure, he's no character, he's not, he's not this, he's not. So do they like the John Terry, David Beckham? Do they kind of move towards that? Are they drawn towards that rather than who we would look at and go, actually, he seems like a very sensible type of fella for a captaincy. So does Southgate, sensible type of. But you can see, I think the press thing during the week gave a little insight into, because Southgate was he did it and then he tried to row back on it so quickly. I felt, because
this is on the photographer thing. Yeah, because what I think on that, Anthony, I think is
explain for people who might have been under a rock.
Basically, as usual, the journalists and photographers are invited to the first 15 minutes of training sessions, and one of the photographers there took a photo of Steve Holland, one of the backroom team, and he had a piece of paper, and with whatever lens they had, they magnified it up, and it looked like it was the starting lineup and that there were going to be 2 changes. So there was uproar over this. But at his press conference yesterday, you said Southgate rode back on it and said, the press have a job to do, we have a job to do. But I think his initial reaction, often your initial reaction is the most honest. And he was very annoyed. He said, we've made an effort with these guys. We've brought them into the camp. They're playing darts with Dele Alli and all this kind of stuff. Playing pool with Jamie Vardy the other day, I believe, some of the journalists. But I thought Danny Murphy in the BBC, Danny Murphy is criticised for this in David Walsh's piece, which Danny Murphy is basically saying, the media are our enemy and, it shouldn't be brought up. There's never going to be cozy relationship. And he says playing darts with a journalist is false. I agree with that.
Totally.
It's completely false. Like it's a complete PR exercise. Right. And I don't see actually how it helps.
David Walsh's criticism on Murphy, I thought, was way over the top as well. Murphy was a good midfield player. He was better than good. Danny Murphy was a really good player. Yeah. Murphy was a good midfield player largely because he played with a lot of intelligence, whatever happened. It's quite a stunning thing to say. Like, I didn't follow this that closely because I wasn't that interested in it. But as I understood it, Murphy just said, basically, as you said, what would you have expected? They were always going to turn on the team when the point for turning came, and anything else was just false. That's basically what Murphy
basically said. But it's an interesting thing as well. Tommy Conlon, he talks at length about that. Did you see the documentary on England, The Impossible Job Managing?
Some of it, I didn't get through it all.
Very, very interesting. But Lineker's in it, Gary Lineker's in it. Lineker talks about the pressure. He talked in it about the pressure the media put on England at major tournaments.
Yeah.
The following day, Lineker is anchoring the coverage of England-Tunisia, and they start off with a montage, what it'll be like if England win the World Cup. And then at the end of the game, where it was a very poor second-half performance, he talked about an exceptional performance. So they can't help themselves in a way. No. And I think in BBC in particular, since London 2012, it became infected in a kind of a cheerleading mode. Like all major events, whether Olympics, European Athletics Championship, World Championships, the World Cup, now there's too much cheerleading going on. And it doesn't help that their panel for the England game last week was Shearer, Lampard, Ferdinand and Lineker in the chair. The 4 ex-England internationals, 330 casts between them. Was years ago, you had Des Lynam, and he didn't have amused attachment about it all. Maybe because he's born in Clare. Might have something to do with it.
I agree totally on the BBC post-2012 thing. I think social media has contributed.
Big time, yeah.
I think in all aspects of media, probably hear
social media
as much as
it's the worst thing that's happened to the world. They've come around to this.
It's one of the few ways beyond just obviously the raw figures of who's watched for producers to get a feel for what the pulse is. And obviously, if you have John Inverdale in tears with the rowers who've won and it's doing great business on social media and it's been retweeted.
Let's do it again.
There is an element of this is working. People love
but
this.
But you see, like with the Brian Kerr thing, like everybody, like Brian Kerr is really knowledgeable, and he's he does his homework more than any co-commentator or pundit that have come across in soccer. But he's been turned into a cartoon because of social media. It's like this another Dublin slang word that Brian, like RTE are even doing a word of the day, Brian Kerr's word of the day or something. And I think that's really simplifying down and demeaning it to becoming kind of a childish thing.
Yeah, on the press thing with England, it seems to me Southgate is pretty smart enough to understand that they will turn when the moment comes. But I think it was just a case of, well, let's make the build-up better. As in, let's give them access to all the players to do interviews. Look, lads, you're going to have to go and play darts with that bloke from the start. Oh my God, are you serious? Can you imagine being told that?
I would rather. You're just going, and you're of course you could see them because I saw Walker being interviewed. And you could see he was scared out of his wits of saying something incorrect, and a few fellas were trying to hammer him. What would be your opinion on this? And why do you see us as the enemy? And it was a real one of these, and you could just see him kind of going. He was shifting in the chair a lot.
What do I say?
What was I told again earlier on? What was I told? What was I told?
Oh, it's you guys have a job to do. That's the line. That's the line. That's the line.
Yeah. I know for a game of darts. But it is a false. Like, okay. You'd look at it and say, are you better off saying, no, you do your job, we do our job, you're going to hammer us anyway when the SH hits the fan, which it hopefully won't, but if it does, you're going to hammer us anyway. Either way, so let's just make sure that there's actual divisions here, or bringing it in. I personally would be saying, listen, you get access with an hour or whatever, but ask them to go play pool. Buddy up.
It's a very difficult one to know. So, by the way, Donegal are in no trouble whatsoever.
Ryan McHugh's just got a cracking goal. They're winning by 8 points. 2-5 to 3.
2-5 to 3. So, just one last point on this, because maybe it's a bit boring, but the interesting thing is that there is that weird dynamic whereby all the journalists are also England fans. And in the same way, if you're covering Ireland, everybody there wants Ireland to win. So, the journalists are walking this weird line where they actually secretly really want to play darts with the lads. They do. This is great. And they want to tweet about it and say, look at me hanging out with Team England. And you've Gabby Logan in her Melania Trump homage the other day, turning around from after finishing a report, and she goes, come on England, on the back of her coat. And you're kind of rolling your eyes, like, what is this? You're wondering, are they there? Like, you legitimately can wonder, are they there to help support the team, or are they covering the team? Because you wonder, can they do both? And almost Southgate's initial reaction might have been a sense of, I thought we were sort of on the same page here.
I think Mick McCarthy was always bang on. Like Mick's line that he used to say again and again was, you're either outside the tent, can you say this word? I don't know, is it pissing in, or inside the tent pissing out.
So what are journalists covering the national team?
So you're okay on that word.
Yeah, okay. But it actually reminds me, because Mick's, I covered, the first World Cup I covered was 2002, right? And it's very different when you cover in Ireland, because you would do, there's a lot of cheering in the press box. There was a lot of cheering in the press box when Robbie Keane scored against Germany, for example. That it's very different to covering it as when a neutral, when you're going around covering different games. But I remember Ireland played Cameroon, the first game in Ibaraki, and I went on the plane afterwards. So we used to travel on a chart arranged by Ray Tracy then, and we travelled with the team. And I was just getting on boarding and was getting just waiting on the aisle to go down. And Clinton Morrison was sitting beside Ian Evans, who was Mick McCarthy's trainer. And I'd known Clinton, because Clinton's really not a decent fellow, and just nodded to him. But Ian Evans stood up and he came out into the aisle a bit, and he just kind of eyeballed. He stuck his face into mine, and I'd never spoken to him in my life. I said, "What the hell?" And when I sat down in my chair, then he didn't say a word or a seat. I was thinking, did I imagine that? But then the day after, we were knocked out by Spain and Suwon in the penalties. We were waiting in the airport to get the flight back. And he was sitting a few rows over from me. I was just reading a book or something. And I was just in my head down. I looked up and he'd moved over and he sat beside me. I said, what? So there is something up down. And he said, are you Kieran Cunningham? And I said, yeah. He said, you wrote something about me when I was under 21 manager. I just want to say, I think you're and he used a word you can't say on radio. And I was thinking, what was that about? But It was just he had the job for 2 years as under-21 manager as well as assistant, and the record was terrible. And it had a tiny piece saying, you know, this was the time Brian Kerr's teams were doing really well, under 16, under 18. It's not really happening under 21 level. A few weeks later, he lost they took that job off him. It was nothing to do with what I wrote. I don't think anybody in the FAI would pay any attention to that. But it's interesting how, like but that sums up, they have a very, generally in football, there's a very adversarial
that's
idea
quite
of the media. Yeah, but generally that's the thing. Like that's what I think about those players now. They're being told now to be pally with journalists, and their club they're being told the opposite. And they've been told that all through the ranks growing up in the academies, etc., that you do 5-minute interviews in the mix zone or something when a sponsor pays you to do an interview, and now you've been thrown out to what they see as the wolves.
I think to go back to your point, Joe, on the press and say the journalists covering it and different stuff like that, I definitely think the social media aspect has a big thing. So again, it's let's go with what is the flavour of the day that day, you know. So Gabby Logan is doing that, that's great, gets retweeted, all this different stuff. But then if the hammer has to be put in, or if the mood is we have to put the hammer in, the hammer's put in. So it's a very difficult. I can imagine for young players now with that England squad, who, as you rightly say, have been told no, stay away. Now it's like no, it's all inclusive. That must be quite. You're kind of sitting there going, and if the hammer does come down, they literally will be going, what was all that about?
Yeah, especially a guy like Raheem Sterling. Like Raheem Sterling has been hammered,
been well covered.
And then suddenly he's been put out.
But I wonder,
talk to these guys.
It's a young team, a lot of them in their first big tournament. So they lose 5-0 in the semi-final. All the journalists go to town for a few days. In 2 years' time, pre the Euros, are they back playing darts? Is all that forgotten? Like your story, Kieran, would suggest that stuff does not get forgotten easily. So do you just, Men in Black flash the pen and go back?
That was an interesting, like Tommy mentioned that in his piece. Steve Curry, who was a very prominent journalist back in that day, like with Bobby Robson time, etc. And he said the number two is like they would have the Chiefs football writers like the Henry Winter, Danny Taylors, and then the number two are their assistant. But the number two were there specifically to do hatchet jobs if things went wrong.
Okay.
And they were designated there. Like he was honest about that documentary. And I wondered, does that still, are there specific guys there who told when things go wrong, you're the boot boy.
You're the man.
You're the enforcer.
Until you can get to the top job.
Let's move off that then. So that's going on. But the bottom line anyway is Stephen Hunt definitely thinks England can go all the way, and Tommy Conlon is writing about the press relations, which may soon turn to friendly fire for Southgate. Cascarino caught the eye then. I had heard that he was ill, or that there was a...
I think he wrote about it in the London Times a few weeks ago. I heard about it then, but like of all journalists, he knows Paul Kimmage more than anyone. Like they collaborated on a fantastic book full time, and he opens up on it. It's very interesting. It's quite. I think there's a lovely line at the end. Like Teddy Sheringham, like they would have played together back starting out was at Millwall.
I would think,
Millwall. And he says, Teddy sent me a message when he met you in Augusta.
You being Paul Kimmage.
Yeah. I saw Paul Kimmage out in Augusta, mate. He says he's worried about you like we all are. And that got to me, he says, because that's just not Ted. No, it's not to concur, battling the lump in my throat. He doesn't do worry. But Cass wouldn't be Cass if he didn't see the funny side. I must owe the effer money, he laughs. But it's typical man in that he had symptoms for a long time and didn't go to a doctor, and eventually his partner encouraged him to. And it's a benign tumour, but it's quite a large one, and it needs an operation. I know. I just know from a family member that like a benign tumour can be very problematic, like because it can be tricky operations. So it's
not an area you want to go messing around.
It's a rough time for him.
No, but it's funny. The article is great because it kind of brings you back. To the old World Cup of '90, and actually his disappointment of actually being dropped. He was saying that he was obviously the starting 9 coming in, as Vialli was for Italy. And then Toto Schillaci took over. Vialli was dropped, and obviously Quinn took over for him. And he just kind of he's regretting the fact that he wasn't more disciplined, which obviously underlines that he was his reputation obviously precedes him. But he was just obviously living the high life.
And even talking about the impact of fame back then, the kind of fame you had in Ireland, and he couldn't go anywhere, but they went to holiday somewhere in the west, to Westport. Westport.
But
it's just like people left him alone or people pretended they didn't notice him.
There's a great line where he says to Kimmage, he says, "Have you ever been cuddled all night?" He says, "Cuddled?" He says, "I don't mean by a woman, I mean everywhere you go." He says, "No, I can't say I have." He says, "It's knackering. Yeah. Everyone you meet wants to grab you and talk to you or buy you a pint or have a dance." He says, "You do it for an hour, it's okay, but you do it for 3 and you'll do anything to escape."
Yeah.
Which you could actually imagine, because he's a likeable figure, and he was really taken in by the Irish.
He's someone you would feel like can go over and hug him.
Yeah.
He's approachable.
Yes, but he's very approachable, because years ago when we used to do Ireland away trips when we were younger and able to play a bit, we used to have a five-a-side game the day of the game or whatever. But like if there was pundits there, like if Ronnie Whelan or Ray Houghton or somebody, they would join in. One of them would play or Frank Stable. Frank was very impressive, actually. He was the best. But Tony Cascarino played one day, and I was in goals, I remember. And I think we were winning, and there was the last minute, and they got a free kick. And he told me where to stand, and I just said, "No, that's wrong." So I moved, and the guy put the ball where Tony Cascarino told me to stand. He said, "What? Why did you do that?" And I was just thinking, I thought I knew better than this guy with 80 caps. Like, what is the arrogance? Where did that arrogance come from? Because he's got that kind of personality. You think, sure, what would Tony know?
Yeah, it's a very good piece.
There's a great, just to bring you, like, talk about how different it is now. There's a great emotive image that Kimmage talks about. He said, he's talking about Cagliari, and he's talking about 1990, where he Cascarino was sharing a room with Townsend.
Oh yeah.
As the eve of the game against England. It's their first World Cup, but they've travelled second class. There's no TV or air conditioning in the room. They're lying on 2 beds watching a slow feeling fan. It feels like a scene from the Apocalypse Now. Like, imagine that.
Yeah.
If you were to tell it, like, this is what's happening back then.
On the health front, so the short version is, as Kieran said, he probably waited a bit too long to get checked out. 18 months have passed since he first noticed the symptoms. A hissing noise in his left ear, he ignored that. Then he lost the taste buds on the left side of his mouth, and then noticed a tingling in his cheek and a growing deafness in his left ear. He says Joe kept bugging him to get himself checked, but there were bills to pay and games to analyse. He kept pushing it back. And then his balance was affected and he fell down the stairs. Then he got the MRI, and the tumour is about the size of a golf ball. So in short, it's benign, but it has to be removed. So he says, I go into hospital on July 19th. I'm trying not to think about it. And here's the awful thing for him. There's a chance I'll lose my hearing and that my speech will be slurred, which must be a terrifying thing for a man who makes his living as a pundit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But I've spoken to some people who've had the operation and they've all come through it fine. So no fear, Kimmage asks. There's a fear of the unknown. And when you're sitting in front of someone who's giving you the bleakest picture of things that might go wrong. And he says he daydreams about lying on the hospital bed and how it's going to feel waiting to go in. So you can see why when Teddy Sheringham texts him to say he's worried, we all are, that got to him, because it's a serious situation for him. I mean, you really hope it goes well. He's a well-liked character.
And as you say, for the line of work he's in, it's scary. It is.
Not much of a pension plan for pundits.
No.
The sorry thing.
And, you wouldn't know, obviously, obviously the money that those guys were on at that time, how well set most of them were, probably not that great,
So it's page 11 of the Sunday Independent. Cass is still seeing the funny side is the headline, and July 19th is when he has surgery. He's on Twitter, Tony Cascarino, so I'm sure if there were a few messages sent his way, it wouldn't be the end of the world today.
Absolutely.
Are we going over to Clonus, Kieran? Or no, we don't have them at Clonus at the moment. The bottom line anyway is it's Donegal 2-7 for Mana 5 points, so it's a walk in the park for Donegal, and England have conceded a goal, so it's 6-1 in their game.
Stephen Hunt is wrong, so
World Cup. 9 minutes to go, 6-1 to England.
The number 2s are getting ready.
There's one last World Cup piece that we should touch on, which is Nick Harris in the Mail.
The Russian doping,
Oh yeah, the Russia doping. I mean, talk about Ireland not getting credit because they're a victim of their own success. Russia doping, I mean, no one even bats an eyelid anymore.
No.
We've calmly forgotten this. That said, I do think this piece in the Mail is mostly mutton dressed as lamb, because there's absolutely nothing new in it, and they've given it the big sell, revealed. There's not a single thing which is
and I think even I think Nick Harris has even written this before about this positive. I'm not sure, but I seem to remember reading this before. But I think because
their opening line is that FIFA and Russia have been plunged into fresh doping turmoil today because Sports Mail reveal new evidence. I haven't seen any new evidence, unfortunately.
No. But I think because of, like, I would say a lot of people have watched Icarus on Netflix on the systematic doping, and because of that, people don't trust Russia. I think, and it's very hard to rebuild that trust. And I think when the stats about the amount of ground they were covering at at full pelt last week, etc., and how they were significantly higher. People are very quick to think something is up again. Who knows? It might be, but I do think it is quite selective. That there's other countries you can look at as well, and how they've dealt with doping allegations in football, and it's been brushed under the carpet, and countries that have been really, really successful and are widely praised. So I think it's right to bring up the Russia if there is an issue with Russia, but I think you have to be even-handed with it.
Pause that thought for a second. Let's just go over to Brian McGuigan. Brian, tell us about that first half. Looks like it's a walk in the park really for Donegal.
Hello.
Brian, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a walk in the park for Donegal there.
Yeah, it is. Half-time scores reading 2-7 to 5 points, and it really should have been more in the first half. Donegal really, really impressive now, and if you go by the management, you think that Declan Bonner is one up on Rory Gallagher, because everything that he's planned for today has come to fruition, and it's working spot on now. The big difference in the first half was the 2 goals, which were 2 moments of genius from Ryan McHugh. The first one, he got behind the defence, fist passed the ball across to Owen Bon Gallagher, who palmed the ball in the back of the net. So that was a half-back passing the cornerback to get the first goal. And then the second one, Ryan McHugh was in the far wing, took on his marker and roofed it in the top corner of the net, which resulted in Barry Malone being took off him. So really the difference has been the two moments of magic from Ryan McHugh. But the striking difference in the first half was that Donegal were pushing up on the Fermanagh goal kicks, and it was given Patrick Cadden no chance to find anybody, and was coming in the middle of the field, and for a 20-minute spell halfway through the half there, Donegal were in for clean possession or breaking ball, and the reverse of that was Donegal's goalie has the option of going short or long on any of his kicks, because Fermanagh aren't pushing up at all.
Right, okay. There's no way back for Fermanagh here, isn't there not?
You can't see it, because the difference is the both managements knew what was ahead of them, and when that happens and they get it right, it's going to come down to quality of player, and Donegal just have that quality of player. And with the heat, with the way the heat is in Clones here today, it's going to come down to the benches too, and Donegal's only going to get much stronger than Fermanagh because they have a stronger bench.
Okay, Brian, go make yourself a cup of tea and we'll come back to you across the second half in full time. You're both admiring the Ryan McHugh goal there.
Yeah, great finish, absolutely. The way he even just cuts across the defender, so he commits the defender rather to take him down.
Takes him out of the game, yeah.
And just, and he just absolutely rifles it. But he sets the goal up.
He does, yeah.
That's the first goal.
At which
it's
point?
just an absolutely beautifully weighted hand pass. Like that was quite a long hand pass. That looks simple, but that is not easy, because the defender was actually there in front of Owen Bon Gallagher.
Yeah, because because I watched you when you were on the morning show with Ger a couple of weeks ago, and you were doing this power rankings thing of the top 10 footballers, but you'd Owen Bon Gallagher in there, and I don't think anybody else would have picked him out, but he's become very important to them. He's lightning fast, he's really pacey. And
I presume as you got a bit older, Anthony, when a forward cut across you like that, you just swipe his knees.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just say, sod this. If you're going to cut across me, you're done.
Yeah. Older, I don't think age really was a determining factor in that, Joe.
To wrap up with the Nick Harris piece, I know we haven't given it that much time. FIFA buried positive drug test of a Russian player 18 months ago. So, again, I don't think any of this is new, but Ruslan Kambalov is the player. Basically, look, short version. 2015, he tests positive for a steroid. And then we have, courtesy of that McLaren report, which is out a while now, some emails back and forth from the Russian ministry to Rodchenkov. And they say, look, you need to save this guy. Save being the code word for covered up. And they swap his urine sample with a Russian 10,000 metre runner, because they had similar urine profiles, so a clean sample, and boom, Bob's your uncle, everything is fine. And it was Evgeny Blovklin who did this from the Russian FSB. He oversaw a lot of the swapping, similar type of swapping at the Sochi Olympics. The point here is FIFA knew nothing of this at the time, but FIFA have been given this evidence in 2016, and they've never explained their probe into Kambalov, and there was no action over the cover-up. So Kambalov is not in the Russian squad because he has a calf injury. Unfortunate timing for him. And Nick Harris says the Kambalov case is just one of 34 in Russian football. FIFA have had this for 18 months. 23 of the 34 were involved in Russia's 2014 World Cup squad. So short version, the McLaren report detailed footballers as part of this. FIFA have all the information, including the Campbell-off case, which is just, as open and shut a case as possible. And they haven't done anything about it. And we're shocked.
Yeah. But I'm
shocked,
kind of,
Anthony.
to be honest with you, I'm like, I saw all the stuff like that, but I didn't kind of get into it, because if it's so, I suppose, dirty at the top, like, how can you honestly think that, this stuff is going to be done correctly, it's going to be done by the book, it's going to be done, I'd say it's a Pandora's box, honestly.
Yeah.
I'd say if they're so worried that if someone actually did really go in there and said, no, I want to do a serious cleanup of this, it would be exposed so badly, and the game would be absolutely really.
See, there's another thing as well. I think there's no willingness to confront Russia in worldwide sport, because I don't know if people realise how important Russia is. Like, if you go through all the sports, like I know modern pentathlon, badminton, rowing, etc. Not just like soccer and Winter Olympics, but so many of the European World Championships are hosted in Russia. Because a lot of countries now don't want to host these major events because they're very expensive. But Putin loves it. Like, this is an expression of Russian power to him. So the world sport feels they need Russia. So there's no willingness to confront Russia.
Very good point.
Yeah, okay. We'll take a short break. There's a few GAA pieces to get through. We're back in a moment with Kieran Cunningham and Anthony Moyles.
The Sunday Papers on Off the Ball.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
The Eason Book Club on the Pat Kenny Show.
This month, Eason recommended 4 books for us. Violet Hill by Henrietta McCurvey, Mind on Fire by Arnold Thomas Fanning, Last Stories by William Trevor, and our Eason Book Club Book of the Month for July, Warlight by Michael Ananjati. In 1945, just after World War II, 14-year-old Nathaniel and his older sister Rachel stay behind in London when their parents move to Singapore, leaving them in the care of a mysterious figure named the Moth. They suspect he might be a criminal, and they grow both more convinced and less concerned as they come to know his eccentric crew of friends. And what does it mean when the siblings' mother returns after months of silence without their father? We'll be reviewing the book from cover to cover on Thursday, July 19th with Mary O'Rourke, Brian Kennedy and Catherine Lynch.
The Eason Book Club on the Pat Kenny Show. Sharing book recommendations with book lovers every month.
Discover more at newstalk.com/Eason's Book Club.
You thought you'd found the best electricity deal, but you hadn't. Because our price check proves that only Electric Ireland customers get the best value year after year. So, if you're not already with Electric Ireland, switch now at electricireland.ie. Saying we'll save you money is smart, proving it is smarter. Electric Ireland, that's smarter living. Conditions apply. Direct debit online billing. Residential customers only. See comparison at electricireland.ie/price check. Based on rates at May 23rd, 2018.
At Centra, we're celebrating summer with fantastic offers across the store. Get grilling with mix and match barbecue meats, 3 for €10. Fresh summer berries, perfect for picnics, 2 for €5. And we have some great summer wine offers, like Emotivo Pinot Grigio was €10, now €7. Centra, live every day. Enjoy, call sensibly.
Cast from the same mould as the award-winning Peugeot 3008, the 5008 gives you all the practicality of a larger SUV and 7 very comfortable seats when you need them. With assertive styling, cutting-edge technology, Peugeot's iCockpit interior, and an impressive list of safety features all as standard, experience the new Peugeot 5008 SUV and enter a new dimension. See Peugeot.ie for details.
It's one of the great London derbies and it's coming to Dublin. Arsenal versus Chelsea, Aviva Stadium, Wednesday, August 1st. See the stars of 2 of the Premier League's leading teams as they do battle in the International Champions Cup. Tickets on sale now from Ticketmaster.ie. Booking fee applies. Don't miss out. Get your tickets early. Arsenal v Chelsea, August 1st. Kick-off 8:05 p.m.
The World Cup, the biggest stage for upsets, passion and opportunity. Your gut says to take advantage of every game, and your smarts say where to go. Because Betfair have had the best odds on the World Cup, so you always get the most from your bet. Betfair, where gut instinct meets smarts.
Data provided by TX Odds and BetRadar, based on Betfair Sportsbook average match odds over round since the 12th of March 2018. Full terms at betfair.com, 18 plus gambleaware.ie.
You said merci beaucoup instead of Gurav Magat in your Irish oral. Can never remember if Jerifor means sister or brother, and got your first shift at the Gaeltacht, so that'll always have a little place in your heart. Moron no biogan is cuma, is linny. Whether you speak a lot or a little this year is Blian na Gaelga supported by TG Car. And you have every right to say, Tá Gaelga agam. Celebrate Blian na Gaelga with TG Car. Sualela.
Some jobs need a master, a mortgage master, with dedication, focus, and expertise. If you need results, you need someone with decades of know-how, with no distractions, no time wasting, and no faffing around. Not a jack of all trades, but the master of one. For a job as important as your mortgage, that's EBS, the Mortgage Masters. Search EBS Mortgage Masters to find out more. Lending criteria, terms, and conditions will apply. EBS DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Off the ball.
I will not tolerate it. It's been spoken to the level of abuse that was thrown at me, so I have sent him home.
Yes, you thought that they'd take it back, that the players wanted to take it back. Yeah. What do you mean to take it back?
Bubachop is there! Oh, and Bubachop is there! And Senegal have scored the first goal of the 2002 World Cup!
I arrived for work tired and emotional, I think is the euphemism.
Oh, surely this time for Keane! And Ireland do it! Robbie Keane! Look at these scenes! Just look at these scenes!
Well done, congratulations. As they'd say in Cork, you're a great bit of stuff.
And Doherty! Spanish goal, Irish heartbreak. And David Seaman's caught off his line, and Brazil take the lead. Ronaldo for Brazil. Oh, what do you say about that? Extraordinary.
Rivaldo saiu, no Ronaldinho pé direito, bateu.
The Sunday Papers on Off the Ball.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie. Championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products.
Welcome back, Anthony Moyles and Kieran Cunningham here in the studio. In Russia the other night, a plague of midges descended on the Volgograd Stadium, irritating the players and driving the spectators mad. A bit like Fermanagh. I'm looking forward to watching them play today as much as Arlene Foster. So says Joe Brolly in the opening to his piece. I'd prefer a plague of midges to Fermanagh.
Poor Arlene, he'll never go back to a game if it goes the way it's going, yeah.
If Rory Gallagher was managing the Chicago Bulls, he would have asked Michael Jordan not to shoot, is another line. And goes on and talks about his management of Kilcar. One of his rules was that the ball was not be kicked into the attacking area. I guess he admits logical, given that there was only one forward. And he says, in the circumstances, I must respectfully disagree with the condescending twaddle doing the rounds about plucky Fermanagh rising and how it would be great for the county if they won. A day out in Clonus is too high a price to pay for bringing the game into such disrepute. Give me a plague of midges any day. So, still not a fan, I would think, of.
No, but what should Fermanagh do? Like, if Fermanagh would man for man in that game, there would be, or they wouldn't be near an Ulster final, for one.
No.
So, like the two, we were saying off air, Declan Bogan, a piece in Examiner yesterday, the 260 senior club players, 80% of them have played for Fermanagh at minor under 21 or senior level, because they've such a small pick they have to try.
20 clubs. 20
yeah.
clubs.
So, like a team like that to be even get to an Ulster final, a county like that to get an Ulster final is amazing. But they just, like last night, I was down in Cork Kerry, and Cork kind of tried to go more or less man to man, like they ended, but they could have lost by 30 points.
Well, even Sean Kavanagh said at half time, it's very nice they're going for man, but if they keep doing that, they're just going to get hammered here out of sight. They're not even making a game of it. Yeah. Do we in GAA seem to moralise over defensive tactics more than any other sport?
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
So, yeah.
But you see, it's also, you look at a piece like that, and again, it's one of these pieces that jumps out at you. I think I get from that piece, there's definitely an issue here between Brolly and Gallagher, more so than anything else, because it's not really even talking about Fermanagh per se. It's about what way Gallagher sets up, the way he uses things. But if you were a team that have a base such as Fermanagh have, or if you are a team that are maybe leaking way too many scores and you need someone to come in with an idea of, okay, we're going to just shore things up a bit here, do whatever it is, well then Gallagher would be a guy that you would either bring in or refer to, or whatever it is, because he obviously has some attributes in that area.
It's a Tony Pulis, Sam Allardyce solution.
Correct. So you have to, but like, I just looked quickly at the stats there in the TV. Like, I mean, I think whatever stage it was, Donegal had 14 scoring chances and Fermanagh had 12. You know, so Donegal got 8 out of the 40, whatever it was. But so it's not to say that they're just shutting up shop completely. And it's so lazy analysis just to say, like to say, you know, X team plays, it's a defensive setup or it's a defensive structure. And like, I mean, a lot of teams now decide, listen, I'm going to play counter-attack football. So it's actually, I think I was talking to you, Joe, about this. It's not the fact of, you can put a lot of people behind the ball. But it's how you get the ball up the far end and put it over the bar is the real intricate part to that, and that actually takes the intelligence of coaching. You can throw 14 fellas and say, listen, you try and break us down. We just double up on players, we close out space, you make fellas shoot from hard angles. That's simple. But how do we get it up the far end to get it over the bar?
It's an important distinction, because like say 2011, Jimmy Guinness' first year, Donegal were a defensive team. 2012 when they won the All-Ireland, they were a counter-attacking team.
Total football,
and you can even make the argument Dublin are a counter-attacking team.
But Kieran, absolutely 100%. That day, you know, I was in a couple of weeks ago against Longford. There was plenty of times where they just left Dean Rock up on his own. Plenty of times they came back, and they didn't even really need to that day. But you'll see it when they play Kerry and stuff like that. They will decide we're going to flood the pitch, or we might leave 2 up top or whatever it is, because that is just the way you have to do it. You could decide that no, you know, there's no more of these, you know, where people say, oh, X team got a purple patch. A purple patch is that you may have the ball now, but we're just going to make sure that you get very little return from that. And actually, it was funny, one of the articles there this morning, it was the Galvin's article in the Sunday Times, where he spoke about Dublin don't give quick kickouts to you. Right, you may get a short kick out, but they don't give you a quick kick out, which I thought was actually a very, very smart way of putting it. So in other words, you may get it short, but you'll get it short when we're all set, and we'll give it to you deliberately so we can actually take it off you. Like, I don't know if you remember the last day against Longford, Mannion's goal. They put, I was at the game, and Sherlock ran in after about 15 minutes, because actually the goalkeeper, his name escaped
Evan Comerford?
No, for Longford.
For Longford,
Good goalkeeper, Paddy Collum, isn't it? I think he was actually getting real joy with his kickouts. But Sherlock went in and they went on a full court press. They put 4 guys across basically the 30-yard line, 4 behind. So they had 8 bodies in there, and then they had Fenton and Macaulay shepherding in behind. So really squeezed. They won the next 6 kickouts in a row, I think. And they got, I think the return was 1-3 or 1-4. But if you remember the goal that Mannion got, it was a short kickout, not fast, but he was met with a shoulder, the Longford player, that actually nearly, I think he ended up having to go off. He dropped the ball. Paddy Anders hit him an awful shot, great shoulder, buried him. He dropped the ball on the ground, Mannion picked it up and back of the net. So that distinction, I think, is brilliant. And when you look at when you look at the game today, like, and this is why I don't keep talking about Dublin, but Dublin have the ability where they have Cluxon at one end who can do it whatever way you want, short, fast, quick, long, and then they squeeze the living daylights, and that's what happened Cork and Kerry last night. As soon as Kerry decided, let's squeeze the kick out. It was over.
That Galvin point's very interesting on a host of levels, and actually the goal you're talking about, it reminded me of Man City in a few of the games, or sorry, Liverpool did as Man City, whereby they let the first man have the ball. Like, they actually created just one option for the goalkeeper, so the whole team then knew exactly where the ball was going, and then there was a plan to press that. It was John Stones. He was in big trouble because he was completely isolated and had no options. Like, what can happen around the kick out's really fascinating.
Well, quite often on that, Joe, because they actually do it in basketball. My wife is played basketball in the States in college and stuff, so she's really into it. She coaches now, but she's saying that a lot of it, what happens is, let's say the pass comes out, the Stone's there. You press him, but it's the second pass. It's where he kicks it to, and you really go after that guy.
Because you can direct him. You can control what they're doing for the first 2 passes.
And Dublin are doing that now more than ever. Like, that's Sherlock's basketball. You can see, because I remember speaking to him about it, and he was saying, well, we're working a lot. He wasn't revealing much, but he was saying we're working an awful lot on obviously the ability of getting the ball when you're in a crowded area. So if you have 5 forwards against 8 defenders, quick hands, space, movement. So that's a kind of a battle. But then from the other standpoint, they've brought that kind of idea in where they're really pressing when you receive the ball.
Like, I would say the debate will go on about whether the greatest team of all time, but I would say they're the best coach team
Absolutely.
of all time, without a doubt, because they're so well drilled. Even like a friend of mine said to me last year, he said, time Cluxton's kick-outs and watch how quickly he gets the ball out. And I did it against Tyrone in the semi-final. And some of them he's getting out in 8 or 9 seconds after it either went wide or over the bar, which is so quick. Like some other teams might be 25, 30 seconds.
That's the inverse of Paul Galvin's point. So it's obviously something they're focused on. Yeah. So Alan Brogan on page 7 has picked Dublin's second 15. Kind of an interesting thing to do, I guess. I had a lot of sympathy for, like Brawley and O'Rourke and Dermot Crowe's here writing. They're all writing about today. It's not a great day. Like it's actually a tough day to be a football columnist. I have a bit of sympathy.
There's nothing else to say about Dublin.
They're two nothing games.
Particularly, like if Dublin are playing Kerry, it's easier because it's going to be a contest, or against Mayo when Mayo were. I don't know if Mayo will get back to where they were, but then you could write about it. But everybody knows Dublin will win by as much as they want today, so they're struggling for angles, and it's been the case across the media all week. But we were talking with Evan Anthony about this.
So that's why. Sorry, I was just going to say that's why Alan Brogan's idea here is a pretty good one.
Yeah, well, basically it's got into the strength and depth, and he's picked an alternative starting 15 with an alternative full forward line as well. But
I think give it to us, read it out.
Yeah, I think he's overstating it. Where his team is Evan Comerford goal, full backline Darren Daly, Davy Byrne, Sean McMahon, who people might know as Raheny, Killian O'Shea, Kilmacud Croke, Keane O'Sullivan, Jack McCaffrey, Paul Flynn, Emmett O'Connella.
They're at midfield.
Yeah, Cormac Costello, Con Basquel, Diarmuid Connolly, who I don't think you'll see this year now. Half forward line, full forward like Kevin McManaman, Owen O'Gara, Bernard Brogan. And an alternative full forward line, Sean Bugler, Plunkett's, Conor McHugh, Nafeen, and Paddy Small of Ballymun Kickham's. Now, maybe it's because I saw Kerry last night and I was really impressed by Kerry, but I think Dublin are more vulnerable this year than any year under Jim Gavin. That, like the four forward subs they brought on against Wicklow were Conor McHugh and Colin Basquel, who were both completely unproven in big games, and Paul Flynn and Kevin McManaman, who to me seemed to be in decline. Owen O'Gara didn't even make the bench. The following game, Conor McHugh didn't make the 26. Owen O'Gara was brought back into the bench. If you go back to last year's final, the sub that made the difference, who won the game for them, was Diarmuid Connolly. And I know in Dublin they're sick of people bringing up Connolly, but I have a feeling in September we might be talking about Connolly.
When he flies back from America to play in the All-Ireland
final. No, but I might say, people might be saying they needed him.
How good is that second 15?
I think that's peak Dublin hype.
Okay. Yeah, very good point.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Because, if I'm Fitzmaurice and I'm down in Kerry, I'm looking at that and I'm saying that is absolutely beautiful. Reading stuff like that.
Yeah. Because like that Dublin full back line, would you be worried about that Dublin full back line? Do you think they would hold a top-class forward line? Darren Daly, Davy Byrne, Sean McMahon.
I don't know enough about it.
But I go back to Joe. Remember Joe a couple of weeks ago, you told me about your pal who was worried about the depth of the forward line.
Yeah.
And I kind of scoffed at it that day and I was kind of laughed. But then actually, during the Longford game, which was a game, by the way, where, as I said the day, if you're coming on and you're Bascal or you're Cormac Costello or you're McManaman, you're saying to yourself, a la say like Bernard Brogan would have done in the years gone by, I'm looking for 1-3, 1-4 here today. I'm really going to make a marker today. Coming on with 15, 20 minutes to go or 25 minutes to go. None of those guys did anything special that day. I think Bascal might have got 2 points, but there wasn't really, I didn't see the hunger. I didn't see fellas saying, no, I'm really going to set my marker for the next day. And I think Kieran's 100% right. If I was in there as a defender and you're after seeing off one of the existing forwards now, like a Rock or Paddy Andrews or whatever, and Costello comes on, or Bascal comes on, or McHugh comes on, not overly worried.
Okay.
If Connolly walks on the pitch, now I'm worried.
Sorry. Yeah. And so you think this article, Brogan's article, is the exact thing Jim Gavin will look at and hate?
Yeah, he'll despise it. He'll despise it. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets on to Alan about that.
Do you know, I do have one slight problem with the article. So he talks about the GPOs, the games officers, promotions officers, and the great work that's been done in Dublin. You know, work at ground level is the real reason for Dublin scaling new heights, and talks about how about 10 years ago, in 2004 in fact, Dublin started putting money into all these games officers, and it's continued over the last 15 years or so. Willfully or otherwise, it does ignore the fact that they were given more money than everybody else by a shocking distance, really.
Yeah.
I just double checked again, because every time I go to name the figure off the top of my head, I think, that can't be right. And then you realise it's true. So between 07 and 17, Dublin.
You're going to get hammered by the Hill 16 Army on Twitter over this now, you know that.
Hill 16 Army, I mean, all of them with the Dublin crest as their Twitter picture. They don't listen to reason. Like, they think this is a personal attack on them. And it's not really.
Well, I've seen during the week, just a quick sidebar, because I brought up, it looks likely that Dublin will be given 2 home games in the Super 8s, but everyone else get one.
That's right, yeah.
So I brought us up, James Horan wrote a column of the week, and I just had a line from James at Hull, giving it a plug on Twitter, and people straight away, you're always anti-Dublin, anti-Dublin. No. How is it anti-Dublin pointing out something that's blatantly unfair? And it's blatantly unfair.
Look, for the Dublin fans who are about to criticise, of this situation, Tom Ryan, then the GAA's Director of Finance, said, this is a tricky one. It's something we've been giving a fair bit of thought to. Will it happen next year, he was asked. The short answer is no. So even the GAA are saying this isn't right. So between 07 and 17, Dublin got, for coaching and games development, 16.6 million.
So nearly $1 million a year.
So 16.6 million. Cork, second on the list in terms of funding. And by the way, Cork have 260 clubs, Dublin have 134. So Cork have more clubs than anybody. So Dublin got 16.6 million over 10 years. Cork, number 2 in the country, got 1.1 million.
Ah, wow.
So Mayo got 500,000 to Dublin's 16.6 million. Mayo got 500,000, the second best team of the last decade.
Well, that's why I think one of the reasons I give Mayo enormous credit for the resources they have, and having half their squad based in Dublin.
Yeah, so
having to train 2 bases, etc.
When people say, like, because quite often the Hill 16 argument are all these lads like, well, you know what, like we spent the money on wisely. Well, like, it's not like there's a transfer market. You can't go out and buy the Gooch for 15 million. No. What else are you going to spend it on except games, promotion and coaching?
Exactly. Well, if you have a club, so say if you go out around the lesser clubs of Dublin, so say like, the likes of St. Margaret's or Fingal Ravens, or these teams most of those teams now and clubs would have a full-time coach.
Yeah.
That does not happen anywhere else in the country.
I don't think Dublin realise that is the case.
Like, as far as I know in Donegal, there's either 2 or 3.
For the county.
And up till a few years ago, there was only 1. So it's a big county.
Yeah,
so.
like I'd love to see the stats again on exactly how many, but I would say, so that's where it goes, Joe. So you've a situation where you've got the under 10s or the under 12s or the under 14s who, if they're lucky, are being coached, let's say, by an ex-player from the club. Now, he mightn't be the best man to coach them anyway, but more than likely they're being coached by a dad of someone, right? Now, the dad may have kicked a bit of football before, whatever. Most of these other teams or clubs have actually got full-time coach in who's been just gone through. He's got all his badges or whatever it is, all his stuff. He has probably played the game as well, and he's getting a wage, and it's on his remit then to actually enhance the coaching development within the team. So if Mr. Smith is out there coaching the under 12s, he's actually brought in, he's trained up. This is the way we wanted the club to go. So of course the standard is going to improve.
And let me say one thing: you don't want to lose GA in Dublin. Like, we need Dublin to be GA mad. And so I think it's right that they were supported, and I think they've done a phenomenal job, and they should be all applauded. Sean Kelly was on the show last year, and around the time when this funding really started kicking in, he was president, and he almost kind of, without fully saying the words, but kind of half admitted, yeah, we didn't think they do such a good job.
Yeah.
You know, geez, they were really, they did a great job.
They've done an amazing job. And one thing that Alan does talk about, and by the way, this is not to say that they haven't, but you should definitely point out the fact that the money is a factor.
Yeah,
it is a factor.
Yeah,
you just want that money in every other county.
Yeah,
whatever the ratio
all the other things he talks
is.
about here, Costello, absolutely. At the helm, John Costello has done an unbelievable job. Because we've seen other county boards who, if they got the 16 minute, it would be built on stands.
That's
there's a very important point to make.
Other county boards would waste that money.
But that's the thing, and that's why I think this point is very important, Joe. People keep saying this; it's cyclical. Sure, Kerry were at the top for a few years, Tyrone, and Dublin will slip away. Dublin won't win every All-Ireland the next 10 years or the next 20 years, or they mightn't win half of them. But they will still be very close, and they will still be the dominant force in Leinster, because they're not suddenly going to say, oh, having loads of GPOs and all the clubs, that was working really well, we're going to stop doing that. Having really good people like Mossy Quinn or John Costello on the county board, who are doing everything right and getting in the big sponsorships we need, etc. We're suddenly going to go back to not doing that. Why? Things that are working really well, you don't stop doing them. So it's not going to be cyclical.
Also, sports science is such that shocks don't happen as much.
Yeah.
Money counts. preparation is better.
Yeah.
Less is left to
And like,
chance.
it's not as if they're suddenly going to be told you don't have access to the DCU gym anymore. Like, they're still going to have access to everything they have
Like,
now.
They do though, sorry John, but they actually, I know this for a fact because they do bring in an awful lot of the ex-players.
Yeah.
They really do. They're unbelievable. And Alan does say that.
Yeah.
He admits it, you know, never mind actually.
Kieran Whelan, Jason Sherlock, Desi Farrell,
Yeah,
Declan
can I mention
Lally,
on that because
Paul Griffin,
Jason,
Paul Casey, Brendan O'Brien, Coleman Goggins, Darren Homan, Paddy Christie, David Henry, Ray Cosgrove, Collie Moran.
Yeah,
and I'd say there's more. And even O'Shaughnessy, Stephen O'Shaughnessy was actually.
Well, he was a key
the
factor,
original man in all those development squads.
Nice.
He was one of the main guys. But I remember chatting actually, not to bring. I think I was actually on the phone to Jason Sherlock one day a couple of years ago, and he was saying that he says it was Saturday morning or something. I was playing with Plunkets at the time, but he was telling me that he was going out for a Dublin under 14s coaching session.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking, well, fair play to you, you know. And he's like, yeah, there's a couple of us out there. He said Declan Lally is out there. So he named off 4 or 5 of the players, ex-players.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, I said, no one has ever called me in Meath to say, listen, would you come out and do an under 14 or 15, even just to stand there or just talk about one thing. You know, so I remember thinking at the time, I was like, that's another.
Because before Jason got involved, like a few years ago, Jason used to come with us, and when he took on, Johnny did take the under 14, under 15 squad at the time, but I asked could I go out with him and do a piece in the development squads. So I went out and talked to, like, Stephen O'Shaughnessy should get more credit. Like, he's one of the main men behind why Dublin are where they are now. But he went through all that. He listed off the names, and not even ex-county players. I think that 5 ex-Dublin captains were involved in the coaching, and like it was all broken up. So a couple in Fingal, a couple Dublin South, Dublin North, Dublin West, etc. And as you say, that doesn't happen in every county, and that's something. Yeah, and that's something that's something that you can do. Like when in the 90s, people forget Kilkenny hurling in the 90s was at a low ebb, and one of the things they did was they contacted every ex-county player and asked would you get involved in underage coaching, and they got a panel of 30 or 40 of them who got get back in. And like you look at, I know a lot of counties, and you look at the people who are in charge of development squads, and you go, jeez, you know, why don't you have Joe Bloggs, who was such a brilliant player? Like, why is this guy? Like, who is he? And
you know. They've certainly set the template. If you can get funding up to a decent level in other counties, then that seems to be the best template for sure. You
like, they deserve praise for a huge amount of stuff they've done. But I think it is still very valid to bring up the financial aspect.
Again, just before Twitter goes nuts, this is not a criticism of Dublin. This is a criticism of the GAA.
Yeah.
This is a funding issue that the GAA got out of proportion.
Yeah.
Dublin did nothing wrong. Why would Dublin say no to money?
Of course.
Absolutely brilliant. It's the GAA actually.
It's the same thing with the Super 8 thing and Croke Park. Dublin have no issue. Dublin will play wherever you ask them to play. It's not Dublin's fault if they're put into Croke Park. It's a GAA wanting to maximise profits. Yeah.
We're still going to get abuse. Brian McGuigan, I presume we're into the closing stages in Clonus. What's the latest?
Yeah, there's 14 minutes left, and the score is reading Donegal 2-10, Fermanagh 9 points. Fermanagh, they have huff and puff in the second half. They put the 2 Quigleys into the full forward line and they're playing long balls in, but to no avail. Donegal have their defensive system worked out, and they're getting no joy in it whatsoever. And the thing about Donegal is, when Fermanagh attack, Donegal's got 50 men back behind the ball, but they have become very Dublin-like, and that when they have the ball, they're reaping rewards at the other end, getting men up. So they're getting that balance right between their defence and attack. But great performance from Donegal. Just going to coast now to the Super 8s.
Okay, back to you at full time. Thanks very much, Brian. So Donegal coasting. Before we go, Michael Dignan just touches in his piece in the Mail that maybe the time has come to have some kind of semi-professional almost type refereeing panel of the best referees in the country, because they're not being treated brilliantly at the moment.
Yeah. I'm not sure about this one. I don't know what your take on it. I don't think getting paid will make a bad referee any better.
I think it actually only increases the pressure.
Yeah.
That is already there.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, if you then say, you know, you can imagine if there is errors, which there are going to be errors. I think it's the fact of, and we see it in soccer, you see it in rugby, there has to be an ability. Okay, you've Hawkeye, but there has to be an ability, and you can talk about slowing the game down or whatever it is, but on really contentious issues, they have to be able to have a look at it. Because it doesn't make a difference if you're getting paid, Joe. If you didn't see it, you didn't see it. You know, like, whether you're being a professional or a semi-professional, you're the best referee. If something happens behind you and an umpire or linesman goes, well, I think 5 hits 7, but I'm not quite so sure. Like, what do you do in that situation?
Yeah, like he brings up, is it... He brings up, I haven't got there, was it
AJG.
Brian Gavin, or so, one of the referees anyway said, bringing up about physical fitness, and it shouldn't be about that, but physical fitness is really important for a referee because it's so fast now. You have to be able to cope with the play, so I think you have to have standards of fitness that they have to pass.
There's certainly that. I agree with that, absolutely.
Like, it has been brought up, it was said when the umpiring error in the Waterford game a couple of weeks ago that umpires are regularly brought up for briefing sessions in Croke Park, but I saw this has been disputed. Now, I saw during the week somebody saying this hasn't happened in 2 years. So that's something that I think is indefensible. We wonder why the GA aren't continually training umpires and updating them on what they have to keep an eye out for, or just seeing if they're up to standard.
It does seem that they're not getting great compensation. He says, it's hard to deduce if this was what actually is the case or not. He says, now if the referee gets 50 cent a mile, it's hard to know if that is what they're getting or if he's almost just laying out the day as he thinks it might be. But he says if the referee gets 50 cent a mile, the 4 umpires get nothing except a bit of grub on the way home. Say a referee gets €100, has to pay for 5 meals after the game. It was hard to know if that is the situation. I wasn't quite sure.
I don't think it's, you're definitely not going to retire to the Bahamas on what it is pretty, I think it is. It's
it pretty much is that.
Yeah.
I just assumed it would be slightly better.
But it's never been harder. Like, we brought up social media before, but if you look at Kieran Brannigan made a couple of contentious black card calls last night, and he's been absolutely slaughtered. And he's going to know that. And his family will know that.
And Martin Carney actually hung him out to dry even on RTE at half time because he said, he's now refereeing it completely different from the first half because there was an incident where it could have been a black card at the start of the second half. I don't know if you remember. I can't remember who was pulled back. And he said, he was throwing them out like confetti in the first half. But I've also heard, because I was actually chatting to a guy who's very close to a referee, that the referees are going in at half time and they obviously talk and they'd say, well, what happened there? What do you think? And I remember a couple of weeks ago where they spoke about Cooper being taken off by Gavin at half time.
Oh, Johnny Cooper, yeah.
So Cooper kind of, I don't think it was a sending off offence. Do you remember that one in the Longford game where he caught the guy? Yeah. But anyway, Gavin obviously realised they might be talking about this at half time, so he just whipped them. Took him off. So there was no possible recriminations that were going to happen in the second half. So what my point is that these guys are, it's human nature. So they're going in and they're obviously reading about stuff, or someone might be saying, listen, we got this call wrong, that call wrong. And the pressure that's being put on them is absolutely enormous. And if you're paying measly mileage or whatever it is and they're not being well looked after, because at least on game day they should be well looked after, and in preparation they should be well looked after. Of course, But as regards paying them or something like that, or,
Well, maybe I've exaggerated what he's quite looking for, but he's certainly saying, Michael is saying, offer better terms and conditions to match officials. Maybe that involves an overnight for a referee. Devise a proper rate for championship matches where the umpires are well looked after. Say €100 each for the day. Train them up properly and make them part of the whole process. But
you will still get mistakes. Because he asked for video ref as well, which would definitely help. But you look at Serbia and Switzerland the other night. There was a blatant penalty that the referee missed and the VAR didn't call it up either. So when the two guys wrestled your man to the ground, so you're still going to have mistakes. There's going to be no perfect system. So.
If anything, the big issue is that in GAA culture, we have referees escorted off the pitch by police routinely.
Yeah.
Well, but they also don't have the support. So you don't have the support of incidents like that.
Yeah.
So you can go, well, hold on a second. We'll just go and we'll have a look at this. Now, you might say, it's too fast and there's going to be plenty of things. But you're talking about big incidents.
The Gleeson goal. Or the Gleeson. Well, it wasn't Gleeson's goal, but because my one thought that day was, my initial thought straight away, okay, I felt bad for Waterford and everything. But my main thought was just, this poor umpire.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Okay, the national media moves on and we've all forgotten about him. But in his town, in his local parish, he's just the bloke. Do you remember that Gleeson goal a few years ago? Yeah. That was Paddy.
Yeah.
But this isn't this is a player now. But you'd remember this very well. But you'd remember this.
I was waiting for this one.
No, you'd remember this one very well because Meath had won Meath in All-Ireland, ended up winning Meath in All-Ireland in '96. In the drawing game when Colm Coyle kicked the ball from out the field and it bounced over the bar. Yeah. But I did an interview with John Madden, who was a Mayo goalkeeper, and he said 20 years later he'd be in a pub and he was and somebody would shout over to him about don't let the ball hop, John, or something. Like it's got, like, so you can't let it behind you. Like the same for umpires. Anybody who makes a mistake, it's just.
Well, I mean,
people don't forgive you.
Per Cooney, what was his first name from '98 with?
Jimmy Cooney.
Jimmy Cooney.
Yeah.
Never refed again.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear the documentary?
Sludden.
Yeah.
The documentary on Who Dares Speak of '98 or Who Fears Speak of '98. I'm not sure what the name is.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah.
Where they have an interview with Cooney, and he just talks about being in the dressing room afterwards, and his wife coming down to him, and tears all around, and just, I need to get the hell out of here.
And as far as I remember, his watch had stopped. Like it was, no, I think he'd stopped it for an incident, and he'd forgot to restart it. I think that.
We won't get into it all again.
But I mean, what
should they have done?
But like, it's just a human error. Like it could happen to anybody.
As the poor man is sitting there going, just when I thought everyone had forgotten about
They're
it.
talking about it.
Joe Malloy brings it back up.
My first thought is always, oh, these poor lads, like, this is terrible. This is why, like, they'll do 20 years of brilliant refereeing, and then they're remembered in infamy. It's a bad gig. But
it's a bad gig.
I must check. I haven't
realised.
realised.
That's why people don't want to do it.
Yeah, well, maybe Michael's point is a good starting point. We'll at least make the day a bit more appetising in terms of, well, you'll be well looked after and you'll get your overnight and a few quid and everything.
Yeah.
Now, it's still nothing if the whole country is bitching about you the next day in the Sunday papers. Then you're...
Yeah, it's.
Then you're in a hiding.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Okay, we're pretty much done. Is there any last thing anyone wants to mention? I think we've covered a fair bit.
I think we covered the guts of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Thanks very much for coming in, Kieran Cunningham.
No problem.
Fresh back from. Oh, how good were Kerry last night, by the way?
I was really impressed. Like, I know people say, they let in 2 soft goals, but they let in 5 scores over 75, 76 minutes, whatever it was. They won.
Unbelievable.
Excuse me, the biggest winning margin in a Munster final in 80 years. And they have just so, like what was missing from them last year, the big thing was pace. And there's so much pace, like I was saying to Anthony outside, Gavin White, somebody people weren't talking about that much, he is lightning fast from wing back, really good player. Clifford O'Shea, really good. Even Kieran Donaghy, I know the game was won when he came on, but he was still able to win balls in the air with one arm, one hand, and then lay it off, really smart layoffs. Like they have a lot of strings to the bow. I think they'll be very hard to beat.
Yep.
The keeper's an improvement too. His kick-outs very good, I thought. And the way they pressed hard on Cork was, Cork couldn't get out of their half for a long time.
Pace, and options.
Yeah.
Options. Ball carrier had options in the forward line, like 2, 3, 4 options.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Interesting. 66 minutes on the clock. I tell you what, Donegal are going to flirt with their average this far, which no one thought they would. They've averaged 2.19 in their 3 games. They're at 2.14 with 5 minutes to go. So it's actually been a very impressive performance. Now, admittedly, Fermanagh are down to 14 men.
Yeah,
so
the first game in the Super 8s now, we're presuming they win in Dublin win, will be against Dublin Croke Park. Be an interesting one. So they do a great battle in the league now this year in Croke Park. So.
Yeah, that's, I tell you, Donegal, there's going to be, Donegal, Kerry, obviously, and Dublin. Going to be 3 fantastic, and I think you'll squeeze. Mayo could continue to.
What do you think of Galway?
Well, the funny thing is, we spoke with like Galway have just are continuing to kind of come in under the radar.
They don't jump to your mind when you're still talking.
Straight away, exactly. So they'll have a shout.
Anyway, we're done. Donegal lead by 10 with 5 minutes to go. Thanks to Kieran Cunningham from the Irish Daily Star and Anthony Moyles as well. Anthony's going to stay with us to keep an eye on the Dublin Laois game, so you're on double shift today. We'll take a break.
Good score.
Over?
Oh, hang on.